All right, this is something that I'm adding in to your curriculum that I don't see happening right now in your textbook, but it is something that we have to go over for an Algebra 2 lesson. Remember I told you that this textbook we're using is advanced in a lot of ways, but there's also a couple of things that are missing, and this is one of them, and I will be honest, I'm just going to tell you up front, this is a weird and it's kind of tricky, and students struggle with it every single time I teach it. So you are going to have to not get frustrated, and you are going to have to try, right? And if you get confused, you're going to have to reach out to me for help. And if I don't answer immediately, you're going to have to be patient and maybe even text me again, because I'm a little crazy. So I'm forewarning you, don't let that freak you out, but take the time. Work the problems with me as I am working them. When I ask you to pause the video and try it on your own, pause the video and try it on your own, because this is a little tricky, okay? One of the big reasons students struggle with these is because they're word problems, which means there's not like a formula you're going to use and change values every single time. They're all going to look a little bit differently, and that's going to require you to stop and sort of dive into some critical thinking, some cognitive reasoning, and it's just difficult sometimes. So they're word problems, so don't panic yet. And here's the thing. When we encounter word problems in which we have to solve for two different unknowns, we're going to have two different equations. You are going to have to formulate your equation by pulling out information from the problem given, okay? Right now we're going to deal with value equations. We're going to deal with money this whole lesson. You're going to have two equations. You're going to have what I call a count equation and a value equation. And we're going to just work through that a little bit at a time. The best thing to do is just to jump into this and do one. So here's the word problem. Kimmy had 28 coins that were nickels and dimes. The value of the coins was $1.95. How many nickels and how many dimes did she have? Now I have several kids who are going to start just taking a pencil and paper and start estimating and try to figure it out, and sometimes you're going to get it right, sometimes you're not. So I'm going to show you what I believe to be the quickest way to do it and the always accurate way to do it. You're going to be given two sets of information. You're going to be given what I call a count equation, which is just the value of, not the value, the oh gosh, let me just erase that. The count equation is how many of something you have. We have 28 coins. I apparently cannot underline or box in anything, but that's supposed to have a box around there. I have 28 coins. Those 28 coins are made up of nickels and dimes. Let me just erase that box because that is making this harder to see than it should have been. 28 coins that are nickels and dimes. 28 coins, let me see if I can underline it, that are nickels and dimes. I'm going to formulate an equation based on that information. 28 coins that are nickels and dimes. The second thing that I have is the value of the coins. The value of the coins is $1.95. So we're going to create two equations, and let me show you what they are to see if it makes sense. So we're looking for two unknowns, nickels and dimes. So we're going to make two equations. We have a count equation and a value equation. So here are these equations. Number one, I'm dealing with nickels and dimes. So I'm going to call them N and D. And I know that I have 28 of them. I don't know how many are nickels. I don't know how many are dimes. But I know that if I add them up, I have 28. So nickels plus dimes is 28. That's my count equation. How many that I have? Nickels plus dimes, count-wise, is 28. Now I have a value equation, and a value equation has to include the value. Nickels are worth 5 cents, so it's 5N. Dimes are worth 10 cents, so it's 10D. And the total value is $1.95. Now, if I ignore that decimal, I can make it a whole number. There's this whole mathematical system where technically I have 0.05 nickels plus 0.10 dimes equals 1.95. Multiply everything by 100 to eliminate your decimals, blah, 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 blah. If you will just use whole numbers and drop your decimals, you'll be fine. So your count equation is just how many you have, Nickels plus dimes is 28. And I'm going to be given that information in my problem. My value equation is going to be the value plus the value equals the total. The value of nickels, 5 times N, because a nickel is worth 5 cents, plus 10 times D, because a dime is worth 10 cents, equals 195. I'm dropping all of my decimals, so I have it easier to work with. I despise decimals, so I'm going to drop them all. And now I can use either substitution or elimination, whichever one you are more comfortable with. Personally, I like elimination better. I think it's quicker, and in this problem, I think it will be easier. So what I'm going to do is I am going to multiply my top equation by -5 to eliminate my nickels. Okay, I'm going to choose to do it this way. You could do it however you want. I'm going to multiply my top equation by -5 to eliminate my nickels. When I do that, my new top equation is -5n minus 5d equals -140. Now I realize I went from capital to lowercase. It doesn't matter. You can call this whatever you want to call it. I'm using n and d because they're nickels and dimes. That denotion, or that's not a word, the way that I denoted that or the way that I represented that, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. I don't need to change my bottom equation because this right here is going to eliminate itself. Okay? So when I add this straight down, I end up with 5d equals 55. -5n plus 5n, those n's simply go away. -5d, don't forget that sign's in front of there, plus 10d is 5d, equals 55. Now I've got to get rid of that 5 that's with the d. I'm multiplying on the left. When I move it over, it becomes division, so d equals 11. That means I have 11 dimes. But I need to know how many nickels and how many dimes she has. So now that I found how many nickels I have, or she has, I am going to plug that value in here to solve for the amount of nickels. So nickels plus dimes equals 28. I'm going to replace my d with 11 because that's what I solved it. So n plus 11 equals 28. I need to move that positive 11 over. When I move it over, it becomes negative. So 28 minus 11 is 17. N equals, so there are 17 nickels and there are 10 dimes. So my answer is this and this. It may be such that a problem asks you how many nickels only, or how many dimes only, or whatever values you're working with. So make sure you read your whole problem, because if I didn't need to find both values, I could save myself a little bit of time. In this case, dimes equals 11, nickels equals 17. So you need to have a count equation, you need to have a value equation, and then you can use whichever method you're more comfortable with. Let's look at another one. This one says shrimp cost $5 per pound, lobster cost $13 per pound. Mom spent $109 for a total of 9 pounds. How many pounds of shrimp did she buy? So the first thing I need to notice is all I need to solve for is shrimp. It doesn't ask me about lobster, so my focus needs to be solving for shrimp. Now I'm going to set up my equation. I'm going to set up my count equation. I'm dealing with shrimp, lobster, and a total of 9. For my count, shrimp plus lobster equals 9. And then my value. So I spent $109 total. Well, I don't spend $109. I can promise I'm not going to spend that much money on shrimp and lobster. My shrimp cost $5 per pound. My lobster is $13 per pound. So here is my count equation. Here's my value equation. And I've pulled all of that information from my word problem here. Count and value. And I'm going to just use whole numbers and eliminate any decimals. Now, because I want to solve for shrimp, I personally am going to use elimination, again, because it's my favorite one to use, and eliminate my lobster. Now, to eliminate a positive 13, I need a negative 13 here. So I'm going to multiply everything by negative 13 in order to eliminate lobster. And again, the reason I'm eliminating lobster is because I want to solve for shrimp. Okay, So I'm going to multiply everything in that top by negative 13. So now I have negative 13 shrimp minus 13 lobster equals negative 113. I don't need to touch my bottom equation. 5 shrimp, 13 lobster equals 109. And now I can add straight down. When I do that, this goes away and I am left with negative 8 shrimp equals negative 8. Negative 117 plus 109 is negative 8. I need to move that negative 8 over from the shrimp to get shrimp by itself. Negative 8 divided by negative 8 is 1. And because the problem simply says how many pounds of shrimp did she buy, the answer is 1. She bought 1 pound of shrimp. Here's the next problem. I have 14 coins made up of quarters and pennies. I have a total of $2.78. How many quarters and how many pennies do I have? So what I would like for you to do is I would like for you to try this by yourself. Just try to write something down. I had a professor a million years ago tell me, if you have no idea where to start, just write something down and maybe it will click. So you remember, count equation, value equation. Just try to get those equations done. And then pause, see if you've got it right, and then pause it and keep going. Try to do it on your own. All right. Hopefully you've all paused it and tried it. Let's start by setting up our equations. We have a count equation and we have a value equation. We have 14 coins made of quarters and pennies. That's going to be my count equation. And then for my value equation, I know that my value is $2.78. So count, value, and here are my two equations. Quarters plus pennies equals 14. My value equation, quarters are worth 25 cents, so 25Q. Pennies are worth 1 cent, so plus 1P equals 278. And by dropping all of those decimals, I can have whole numbers. Now I'm going to use elimination because it's my favorite way to do it. It's going to be really easy to eliminate my penny. If I multiply my top equation by negative 1, I end up with negative 1Q minus 1P equals negative 14. I don't need to change my bottom equation. It just stays. And now I have a negative 1 and a positive 1, so that's going to eliminate itself. So what I end up with is 24Q equals 264. The P's have gone away. Move that 24 over and divide by it because I'm multiplying it on the left. And I end up with quarters equals 11. That means I have 11 quarters. And if I go back and read my problem again, it says how many quarters and how many pennies do I have? So I need to plug that value for Q back into one of those equations. I'm going to pick the top one because it's easier and solve for P. If I choose the bottom one, I'm going to end up at the same place. It's just going to be a little harder and longer because those are big numbers. So my top equation is Q plus P equals 14. I'm going to replace my Q that I found to be 11. So 11 plus P equals 14. Move that 11 over. When I move that 11 over, it becomes minus because it's understood plus. Remember, when there's no sign, it's understood. 14 minus 11 is 3. So my answer is Q equals 11, P equals 3. Those are both my answers because it wants to know how many quarters and how many pennies I have. So remember, count value, nope, count equation, value equation. So your homework is going to be that worksheet that I gave you. Do your best. If you are still really struggling, let me know and I will see what I can do to help you. Do your best and see what you can do.